For the past 5 years, Progressive Meats in Hastings has been developing a way to measure the actual meat yield from lamb carcasses. Fielding sheep and beef farmers Hugh and Helen Winder own and run a stud called Fairly Texels, and they produce one of the highest saleable yields being measured at Progressive Meats.
There's a couple of hundred hectares effective. Before the drought of 2008 we were running about 1,500 ewes. We were blown out with 300 ewes because of the drought. So now we're running around about the 1,200, about half and half commercial and half stud. Supporting cattle, the drought blew us out of our cows and calves, which was a bit of a shame, and now we're just buying and finishing cattle. Everything goes through the cell system, which means there's a weaning weight goes in, there's an eye muscle scanning weight, and the scanning data goes in March, so that's another breeding value. And then the weights go in again in the winter. We're in a sire referencing group, so we use reference sires between us breeders to link us all together genetically. And so all the information gets put into what they call a cross-block BLUP, and the BLUP is best lineal unbiased prediction. So yeah, it's all interesting, but there is a lot of work involved, and of course, come lambing time, the lambs all tag back to their mothers, so we have to be pretty accurate, make certain that the job's right. We first spotted Texels when they were in quarantine at Flock House over in Bulls. They appealed to me to be a bit different right from the very word go. They've got a far greater back end area of muscle. Subsequent has been a DNA test that has identified that muscle, and so we can blood test for that muscling. We always knew that the Texels had more meat on them than any other breed that I'd played around with anyway. And Craig Hickson from Progressive Meats started talking about trying to reward farmers who had more saleable meat on their lambs' carcasses. And being the innovator that he is, he decided to build a purpose-built boning room at his plant in Hastings to get the meat physically boned off the carcass and weighed in portions so that he could reward suppliers who had lambs above the average with above average payments. And that's now come to fruition. Our involvement with Progressive Meats is selling terminal lambs through the plant that get marketed through lean meats. Currently, I think our average is sitting at around about 105% of schedule. Craig sets his schedule at 100%, and if you send lambs in and they only do 98%, well, they get 98% of the schedule. And ours has been going through on an average of about 105%, which I think is consistently one of the highest that the plant has, which means that 105% of schedule, it's 5% above schedule. So if the schedule's $7, that's an extra 35 cents a kilo. If the lamb carcass weight is 20 kilos, well, that's an extra $7 a lamb for doing nothing else except using good Texel rams as the sires, preferably having a half-bred ewe and then a purebred over them. Gives you a three-quarter bred, and then you're really in the clover.
Yield along with productivity are the two major influences of value in processing. It is effectively the conversion from what you receive from the farm into what you have available to sell. So that's a measure of efficiency and very important in determining the value of what you get out from what's received in. Productivity has been focused on for a number of years, and that's primarily because it's been relatively easy to measure, as well as, of course, being important. Yield, on the other hand, while it's always been known to be important, has been relatively difficult to measure on an ongoing basis, and has normally only been measured by proxy or by trial. In the system that we've installed here, and we've been able to cover off this requirement, and in particular we have a system that allows us to measure not only the potential yield of the animal, but also the performance of our boners. The focus of the boner is in realising the potential of the animal that's delivered, and the focus of measuring the yield performance of that mob allows us to assess its potential, and therefore by that measurement it gives the opportunity for the development of selection processes and breeding values to be able to improve the potential yield of the flock over time. For farmer suppliers, we give them the option of electing to be paid on the basis of saleable yield, and we use the competitive meat schedule price. That's the meat schedule price, which is equivalent to the standard yield, which is the average for the population. So when we measure the yield for a line of animals or a mob belonging to a farmer, then we compare the relative yield value of the cuts from those carcasses with the standard, and if they come out at 101% or 1% higher, then we pay them 101% of the schedule, and conversely, if they come out at 99% of the average, they'll be paid at 99%. Yield as such has a number of components to it, and we start in our approach from the live weight, and we do so because it is really the only measurement that the farmer has available to him on the farm. Live weight is his tool, live weight gain is his measuring proxy for comparative purposes. So with that live weight, we provide here, and to the best of my knowledge, we're still the only lamb plant that provides a live weight measurement, which we call a fasted weight, just prior to stunning on site for lamb. There are beef plants that do this, but not lamb that I know of. So that's then the live weight. You've got live weight to hot carcass weight, which is the weight the farmer's paid on, and so this is a significant variation in animals there and a large value differential. We then go from the hot carcass weight that the farmer's paid on through the chillers, and there's a chiller weight loss, much the same as your food dries out in the fridge, which we look to manage by the application of technology and refrigeration characteristics. That delivers us a cold weight into the boning room, and that cold weight then forms a reference, and we try and maximise, therefore, the value of the cuts that are derived from the cold weight carcass, and that gives us a product weight. The reference is the cold weight when it comes into the room, so we register the carcass, and at that time the ticket that's on the carcass is scanned, and within that ticket is a barcode which contains a unique number, which is comprised of the day of the year, the mob number and the sequential number within the mob, and the combination of those three things give us a unique number for all of the year for that carcass. We're in a relatively short string, and we keep track of that number. It's then when it goes to the saw, that carcass is re-registered, and then by the use of speed, time and distance, a little bit of physics, when the cut from that carcass is dropped onto the belt, it knows the speed of the belt, it therefore knows the time it will arrive at the predetermined station for the boner to bone, and therefore, and following it through that way from the boner, when he releases it, he presses an OK button which registers it for delivery to across the scales. So with that situation, we can link the weight of the cut with the boner who boned it and with the farmer who supplied it and the sawman who cut it. And that allows us to provide and collect information on the performance of each of those people. The uptake of saleable yield in the first year of payment last year was relatively low, but with an emphasis on it this year and a focus which increased substantially, although still less than 25% of our suppliers coming through, but we're heading towards that figure, and we're very pleased to see that, because that means that focus will be of assistance in leading to genetic improvement programs with yield as one of the selection criteria.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.